coming today, and thank all the stations that are carrying this press conference live. Obviously, we've had a very important weather event over the last 24 hours that started at the coast, came ashore in Matagorda County. Galveston was hit heavy, moved up through the greater Houston area, and now is moving up through northeast Texas. For those of you in northeast Texas, be aware you will have tropical storm winds maybe as late as midnight or 1 a.m. You will have flooding, you will have rain, and you need to stay off the roads because you may not have rain in your area, but if you drive a few miles, you may run into somewhere that's had 5 or 6 inches of rain. We do not want to have any more deaths on the road due to flooding. We've had 1 in Houston, 1 fatality due to a drowning, and sadly, we've had 2 freak accidents where trees fell on individuals and they were killed. So we've had 3 deaths to report to this moment, and we hope there are no others. For those of you who are in the areas of Texas where the storm has passed through, do not take your safety for granted. We still have power lines down. There are over 50 roads that are covered with water. Some of them are impassable. You may come upon a road where you say, you know, I see water, but there's no sign that I can't go across. It doesn't look that deep, and it may be several feet deep, not several inches. It only takes a few to have you floating down the river. We've already had several rescues today. We thank our rescuers in the Houston area, and we may have had more around the state that we have not heard about yet or have not been reported to us. So those of you where the storm has passed through, it will be dark in several hours, and even now, be very careful. Power lines are down. We are sending crews and addressing that always as soon as we hear about that, and there's still more flooding. So do not take this storm that it's past you now. As far as moving forward, with the rain hitting northeast Texas, what's going to happen is that rain will go into the rivers. The rivers go downstream to areas in the greater Houston area and other counties around Harris County, where Houston is located, to cause additional flooding in the days ahead. Because we had a huge surge over the last several days, of water coming ashore, particularly in the last 24 hours. You have water meeting water, which means it's a little bit tougher to drain out to the Gulf of Mexico. So we're not past any flooding. We're not past difficult conditions, but the storm by midnight will be beyond us. My name is Dan Patrick. For those of you who do not know and have not seen our press conferences, I'm the Lieutenant Governor, but the Governor is out of the state this past week and this coming week on a pre-planned economic mission to Japan and Taiwan and South Korea. So we've been on duty. And I can tell you that the 50 or so people behind me from all aspects of emergency response are doing a tremendous job. And they partner with your local county judges and your local mayors. We work in tandem. And the key piece of keeping you safe, which is our #1 mission, is to keep you safe and to protect life. Our #1 mission is we need your cooperation as well to be very careful yourself. So we're going to have a very thorough press conference here, get into some statistics and numbers, and then we can take questions from the media. But this has been a storm that I think every storm is a lesson. And I've lived in Texas now for over 40 years. We've had a lot of storms and a lot of lessons. And this storm says, even if it's a Category 1 or was a high tropical storm, that people thought it's a Category 1. But as we said in our last press conference yesterday, I guess it was, or earlier this morning, the days run together, is that if you're in the middle of 80-mile-an-hour winds, which we're in the middle of Houston today, and if you're being pounded by 6 or 8 or 10 inches of rain at the same time, and if you're at the coast where the surge is coming in addition, or if you're inland where we've had tornadoes reported, and there are a number of tornadoes now being reported in northeast Texas, that might as well be a Cat 5 storm to you if you're in the middle of it. So the lesson I hope everyone for this time is we take no hurricane or no tropical storm for granted. And I know the people of Texas do not. Many of you are experienced, and of course many of you have moved here in the last few years, and this may be new to you, maybe your first storm. But the one thing I know we can count on is that Texans will work to help each other. When it comes to a crisis situation or a storm, we work together. We have almost close to 2.7 million people without power in Texas. That number may grow for a while, and we're going to talk about that in a moment with Thomas Gleason from the Public Utility Commission. And that's going to take a multiple day process to get power restored. We had the last report, 10 transmission lines down, and the reason we have so much damage and power is down is we love Texas, but Texas has lots of trees from Houston all the way to Texarkana. And when the branches fall and the trees fall, it takes down power lines, and we have to wait for those crews to be able to get out there. And now they've been able to get out there as the weather has moved through certain areas to assess the damage and get to work. I just got off the phone with CenterPoint, who provides a lot of the power to, or a lot of the service to the greater Houston area and the county surrounding it. They now have 11,500 people coming into the state to help. That's from other counties in Texas and from other states. We do the same when they've had a storm. They have normally 1,675 linemen. So the 1,675 linemen, they self-contract out, subcontract out to tree trimmers, but 11,500 are coming in to get the power back as quickly as we can. With that, let me turn it over to Thomas Gleason from the PUC. Thomas, to talk more about the power.
Thank you, Governor Patrick. As the governor said, my name is Thomas Gleason. I am the chairman of the Public Utility Commission of Texas. So first off, I want to let everyone know the most important thing is if you see a downed power line, please do not approach it. It could still be energized, and that could cost you your life. So I want to please ask everyone to not approach any downed power lines. Secondly, we're entering the assessment phase of this storm. So as the governor said, as the storm passes, transmission distribution companies will start to assess the damage, and as it is safe for them to do so, they will move out and have their crews look at where the damage is and come up with timelines for how long it will take to restore energy across the state that's been affected by the storm. This will be a multi-day restoration effort. This was a big storm that has affected a lot of customers, as the governor said, 2.7 million as of right now. It's going to take a few days for this to get restored, so I'd ask Texans for their patience as the crews are out there doing their best to try to restore energy across the state. If you need more information, I would ask that you go to our PUC website at puc.texas.gov/storm. That has an outage map, so you can go there to see the latest outage numbers and where everything is affected. And I want to let everyone know, I spoke to Governor Patrick before we came out here. The PUC will work with the utilities after this storm has passed and do a post-event analysis. I look at every one of these storms as a chance for us to review what we've done and try to get better at our preparation, our response, and we will do that after this storm so that Texans can be assured that we'll do better as this goes on with every new event.
Now I'd like to turn it over to Nim Kidd, who is the best emergency manager chief in the country. We have the best team in the country. We work with great county judges and mayors at the local level. It's a tandem effort, as I mentioned earlier. And Nim, I'd like for you to give a more detailed report.
Thank you, Governor. As Governor Patrick mentioned, storm came on shore this morning and hopefully will be out of the state by today, but we still have Texans that are in harm's way right now. And so up in the northeast part of Texas, we still have a lot of active tornado warnings. Please help us get that message out for people to pay attention to their local weather forecasters. They should be listening to their NOAA weather radios, and they should take shelter if needed. As Governor mentioned, we still have a lot of flooding operations going on. And so as it gets dark tonight, please do not be out driving around if you don't have to. As the winds are still picked up, where the soils are moist and the trees are tall up in northeast Texas, it seems right now the reports that we have received is most of our injuries and loss of life have been from trees falling on houses or on vehicles. And so I ask you to get to a safe place and stay in a safe place. After dark, you need to be in the safest place that you can find. We have over 2,500 first responders marshaled that are scouring the landscape of Texas right now. As you remember, we started off down in the Corpus Christi area, resources in San Antonio, resources in College Station, and resources pre-positioned in Houston. As the storm has made landfall and moved in, we have shifted those resources to where the needs are. We are in constant contact with our county judges and their emergency operations centers. The #1 request that we have received from our local partners right now is generators. Some of them didn't have generators on facilities at all. Others had generators on facilities, and those generators failed. And we want to work with those generator owners and figure out why those generators failed in the future. The next request we have had is assistance moving patients out of hospitals, nursing homes, or assisted living facilities. We have plenty of our emergency medical task force still available to go and make those moves and get those patients into a safe place. I cannot overemphasize the importance of you helping me get this message out about the dangers of carbon monoxide right now. With so many people in Texas without power, people are going to light candles tonight, which becomes a fire hazard in their home, or they're going to try to run a generator, or they're going to try to run some other fuel-burning appliance that is going to create carbon monoxide, which is a colorless and odorless gas, and it is a silent killer. Please help us get that message out about carbon monoxide safety. And finally, I want to talk about not only what we're doing from a search and rescue perspective, the resources for our medical patients, but we are ready to open more shelters as needed. As the heat sets in and power comes back on, we will work with our local officials to open cooling centers and help resource those centers, and then move quickly into points of distribution for those without power, working again with our local partners and our military department to set up places that we can help distribute food, water, and ice.
Before we take some questions, if you're a CenterPoint customer, this is the number you should call about power outages. It's 713-207-2222. 713-207-2222, because I got word 5 minutes before I came out here that the 911 lines are jammed. 911 is not where you call to get your power restored. 713-207-2222. I hope all the media dealing with CenterPoint will get that number out for us. Lastly, before we go to questions, I said a few moments ago that when we have difficult times in Houston, and we've had a lot of storms and a lot of issues, people come together. So one of the things that you can do if you have power, because you're watching us now, you have some type of power. If you have friends, relatives who don't have power, if you can pass on the messages that we're giving here about being careful, don't be on the roads at night, the issues in Northeast Texas, the number to call power outages, text, email, call your family or your friends, because a lot of them don't have power and aren't able to watch this message right now. They may not have power to get your text either, but at least you can make an effort to inform them. Secondly, some of you will be in neighborhoods. I've lived in Texas for over 40 years, and I know that feeling when your power is out and you look down the street and they have power. And how come they have power and I do not? And in talking to CenterPoint today, here's their plan. Plan number one, to restore power where the most vulnerable are those in assisted living centers who don't have generators, or generators that failed, those in nursing homes that didn't have generators, or generators that failed, or in other situations where maybe they're in their own homes and they count on electricity for their medical devices. So that's the first customer that CenterPoint is going to focus on, as well as Entergy for the customers that they serve. The next issue is, and this makes sense, I think you would all agree, if they have a circuit out here that services 10,000 people, or a circuit that services 150, guess what? They're going to put up 10,000 first before the 150. So some of the order of circuits goes in that manner. And I can remember, because I lived in Houston most of my life, and a lot of trees, and we've had without power, as some of you have now in the past, you know, maybe there's a cookout in the cul-de-sac. Maybe the people who have refrigeration got some hot dogs or hamburgers to share with neighbors. And if you have someone who's a senior or really needs to be out of the heat, the cooling centers, and those are up to the local elected officials to establish, but we support and help them. That's their call, but opening up cooling centers, or just taking them to somewhere where it's cool, to the shopping center, to wherever, so they're not in the heat. They don't have to be older to be in that issue. It can be a lot of people. So if we all pull together, we are strong, and Texans always pull together. You know, we don't have any, to my knowledge, any boat rescues from rooftops in this storm, but one of the things that I remember from 2017 in Harvey was it didn't matter who was on the roof. If you were in the boat, you rescued them. And it didn't matter if you were on the roof. You didn't care who came in the boat to get you. So take care of your neighbors, and we're doing all that we can in the state to assist local authorities. Our number one issue is your life. Every life is important, and we pray for those 3 families who have lost lives so far that we know of today, 2 by downed trees and 1 by drowning under an underpass. With that, we'll open up for questions. Yes, sir.
I first wanted to ask about, when it comes to the power, how maybe the state is stepping in with its resources to help CenterPoint and these other utility companies. get on their feet more
Thomas?
quickly?
Yeah, so the PUC is in constant communication with the utilities, asking them if they need any assistance. We have staff here at the State Operations Center that's working with our sister agencies to see if they're talking to anyone that needs any assistance. So there's 24/7 access to the state resources if they need anything from us.
Do you have anything to add to that, Em?
You know, Governor, you issued waivers yesterday for weight and transportation to allow those out-of-state resources to get into Texas earlier. And so everything that they have asked us to do, we have been able to support.
Next question. Oh,
Governor, just a few days ago, we were celebrating the 4th of July. Are we starting to see the start of earlier hurricane season? And potentially not?
well, it's been predicted. I'm not a meteorologist or a weathercaster, but it's been predicted that there will be a lot of storms this year. This is an early storm for us to have, and it's what I call the backdoor storm, and that's why I was very concerned. And Nim and I talked at 4 in the morning. I don't know, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. The time has all come to one day, but these storms that come in the back door over the Yucatan Peninsula, particularly over holiday weekend, we're very concerned that people weren't aware. Not that they weren't paying attention. They were having fun at the beach. They're just out of their normal routine. They weren't looking at the news. They weren't looking at the internet. And it was far off. But this storm, Beryl, has been resilient and relentless. I mean, they left 11 deaths behind them. It's the first Category 5 this early storm that started out. And so our concern early was communicating. We've done a lot of press conferences. I've done interviews with TV stations, whether big market, small market, mid-sized market, to be sure they know what's happening because we want to get the information out. So I don't know what's ahead, but I know we will always be ready at the state and the local level. We have great partnerships with our county judges and our mayors, and they've done an outstanding job. But right now, the big issue, it's still dangerous. Don't be out on the road at night, really anywhere where there could be power lines down, areas that have already, you think the storm has passed. And then secondly, we're going to have to get through this power situation. And when we get through it, as Thomas said, we will go back and assess how we can do it better. But we are, as I said, an area with a lot of trees and a big storm and 80-mile-an-hour winds and a lot of power lines down, 10 transmission lines. So they're going to have to get out there, assess it, get it back up. And trust me, we're talking to them maybe hourly, okay? Because we know we're hearing from the public, and we need a little bit of patience, and we'll get there. Yes, ma'am.
What is the current death toll?
3, that we know of. 2 by fallen trees, and 1 by a City of Houston employee going to work, sadly, in flooding.
All
Yes.
in the Houston area? Or?
Yes, yeah. The one was in Atascocita, and the one city employee, and I believe I don't know, but I believe the other was in Houston, the other fallen tree. I don't know if you know exactly where that, but I had 3 to this.
In the Caribbean,
There were 11 that I know of through Mexico and the Caribbean. You know, obviously I don't have all the statistics from the country, but that was the last report. Yes, ma'am.
With the thousands of folks coming in to help restore
Yes.
power, do you know how many of them were staged and were able to jump in immediately, or was there none of that?
I do not know that answer, if they were staged or ready. I do know that, I can't speak for those companies. I do know that they normally reach out as, you know, and contact companies to be ready. You never know where the storm is going to go. You know, originally it was forecast to mostly go in Mexico and maybe down in Cameron or Hidalgo County, and it kept moving. So I don't know the answer to that, but we'll get the answer to that and we'll know.
Governor, if
Do
I
you
could,
know?
if
Yes,
I could add, I would say we began at the PUC began to get notifications from companies as early as last week that they were starting to pre-position their internal staff. I don't know about staff, you know, anyone that came in from outside the state, but the staff that were inside the state started getting positioned at the end of last week.
Yeah. And as Nim mentioned, I signed waivers to make this expedite so they could get here quicker. Yes. Let me see if there are any other first-time questions. Yes.
Hello. Hey, have you all reached out to the president yet, or has he reached out to Texas regarding any federal resources?
I've not heard from the president, and FEMA, which is the federal agency, they're back here. They've been here with us from the beginning in preparation, and their part of this will be after the storm to get FEMA money. It has to be more than $54 million of damage to public buildings and government facilities. You know, private homeowners or businesses, they have their own homeowners insurance or flood insurance. So they have been cooperating. They're here, and they will, you know, right now we're focused on lives and we're focused on getting through the storm. We'll worry about sending them an invoice later. And we expect when we send them an invoice, if it's more than $54 million, to get paid. Yes, sir?
Questions for Chief Kidd. You mentioned the high risk, the high danger of carbon monoxide. Could you elaborate and maybe, I know there, you know, just real quick bullet points on how people can keep their homes powered safely tonight, and whether that's carbon monoxide or fire?
Yeah, great question, and thanks for the opportunity to expand on that. One is some people do have small home generators that you buy and hook up to the home. Those run fine. But if you went to Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart and got a generator and you think you need to pull it into your garage and run it in your garage and then run an extension cord into your refrigerator or your freezer, inside the house, even in the garage, that carbon monoxide can leak through the doors and leak through other areas, and you won't even know unless you have a carbon monoxide detector that carbon monoxide is there. So if you're going to run a generator, it needs to be outdoors, away from the house. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for that, and then also be sure that you don't daisy chain too many cords together, because by daisy chaining them, you create additional heat and cause a fire hazard inside the home.
Any
Any
other?
early estimates on damage?
Well, we're collecting damage estimates right now. Our local partners are doing that, but when the winds are still moving through Texas, it's really hard to say how much damage is out there. So we know that our first responders will get out as soon as it is safe for them, just like the power companies can't get out and get up in those bucket trucks when it's more than 35-mile-an-hour winds. So damage assessments will come after all of the life safety issues are addressed.
Governor, this is your first hurricane as governor, right? As acting governor? Is that correct?
I've
trying to think.
I've been acting governor many times, and we've had many incidents. This is the first hurricane that I've overseen, but I've always been involved in all the other hurricanes as a senator or a lieutenant governor.
Right, so you've been in those meetings, but not in the same way as now, and getting the briefings maybe at 3 and 4 in the morning, where you know, the hair on the back of your neck probably stands up. Some of the things that you hear, people are definitely going to die given certain conditions that are being described. Can you talk about the work these folks do in the middle of the night, 3 and 4 in the morning, and the professionalism they bring to it?
Scott, these people that I've met back here, and I've taken time in between our press conferences, our interviews, and our briefings to go around and meet everyone personally, everyone on the day shift, everyone on the night shift, and thank them. These are public servants. Not all of them work for you. Many of them work for TDEM, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, but these others come in from different agencies. And they come in here and they are true public servants. I gave them one of my coins today that has the Matthew 20:26. It says, "For those who wish to lead, you must first serve." These are great public servants, and we replicate these people, Scott, at the local level as well. They're smaller teams in smaller counties, but like Harris County has a pretty big team. So these are people doing their very best, and we're on the clock 24/7. We've been on the clock 24/7. I've been worried about the storm, and I texted him this, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. I said, this reminds me of Ike back in 08 that just kind of came along and kept on going and kept on going. And pretty soon we ended up with Bolivar Island being wiped out because the storm was predicted to be here and it changed. So we've been on top of this, and John Honore, our meteorologist, has been great at the state level. So these are great people. My only job as the acting governor is to get the information out. They're the pros. I don't pretend to be a pro and an expert on their issues. They're the experts. Any other last questions? All right. Well, thank you. You have one last one? You've had two. Okay, one last one then. Go ahead.
I just want to ask
Okay.
about specifically when we're talking about Central Texas, which seems to have been missed a lot.
Yes.
Is there things Central Texans or agencies can do to help our neighbors, or what should Central Texans keep in mind, even if they've kind of been spared here?
Yeah, so two things. One is the first responders that were ready to go in Central Texas. A lot of them are already moving over into the Houston area and ready to move up into Northeast Texas. So those first responders that were staged are moving. The next thing is for our families here in Central Texas that have the ability to give or to donate, figure out where your donations go and work best. The Red Cross and the Salvation Army are here. They've been working very well with us. We want to support them as well. But there are a lot of church organizations out there that over the next several days will be feeding and serving those out there. So cash is always the right size and the right color. Make sure your donation goes to the right place.
So we'll wrap this up, and over the next 2 days, I'll be going out with NIM to areas in the state that have been hit. So when we can get there safely, and if they have the infrastructure for us to get there, like cell service and basic things. So we will be going to some areas around the state personally to inspect it and see what we can do. But look, we have a great cooperation between the locals. And by the way, every county judge has his cell number, and most of them have my cell number. And every one of the legislators have our cell number. So they don't hesitate to pick up the phone and say, we need this. And that's part of what we do. They call us in with a need, and we respond as quickly as we can. Thank you all very much. God bless Texas. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.